Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second series of webinars explaining the changes to the new revised Bonsucro production standard. Today, I'm being joined by Ruth Asensio. For those who don't know Ruth, she's a member of the Standard Revision Working Group. She has more than 20 years of experience in the food industry, mainly advising agro-industrial companies in the implementation of quality management, safety and sustainability systems, such as ISO 9001, FFSC 22000, and she is also a Bonsucro license auditor. In 2012, she started working in the sugarcane industry, coordinating different certifications for a Honduras mill, Asunosa, resulting in the first Bonsucro certified mill outside Brazil and Australia. Ruth has been with the Standard Revision Project since the beginning, being one of the members of the working group in charge of making the changes to the production standard. Also, my name is Nahuel Tuñón. I am the Bonsucro Standards Manager, and I will be, in today's webinar will work, I will be interviewing Ruth a series of questions on what are some of the changes introduced and what was the rationale around some of these changes. So, during the process of consultations, Bonsucro is hosting a number of different webinars, all on focusing on different aspects of the production standard and the revision. We are doing it in thematic zones, and we are repeating the same webinar in various different time zones and in different languages, so that everybody has an equal opportunity to participate and to listen to what is being said. This is the second series, so changes to the structure of the Bonsucro production standard. We'll be running the same webinar all throughout this week, and we'll have a few more scheduled next week. So if you attend this one, you don't need to attend any of the other ones. The next new material will be on the 8th of June, where we'll be talking about human and labor rights in the Bonsucro production standard. So today, as we are focusing on structure of the production standard, we'll be talking about three main things. The first one is the management system indicators, which are found in Principle 1 of the production standard. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to download the standard and have a look at it themselves. We'll also be talking about which indicators apply to the whole supply area, because that is also a new element in this new standard. These indicators are found mainly in Principle 1 and some in Principle 4, and finally in Principle 5 as well. And lastly, we'll be talking a little bit about the continuous improvement indicators. So which indicators you have to be met only after the first year of certification and progressively so. These are integrated into Principle 5. Today's webinar, we hope will stop regularly for questions. Please use the Q&A box provided down at the bottom. And also, if you prefer to say your questions or your comments out loud, please use the raise my hand function, and we will open up your microphone. We are hoping for a lot of audience participation today, but we do have to finish sharply at 2:55. So apologies if we don't get to all of the questions. We can continue the conversation later via email or through some other means as well. So why are we focusing on these things? Why has this been chosen to include into the new production standard? So the first one, if we talk about management systems, you know, they are a staple for any certification system, mainly starting with the ISO. They help, management systems helps operators in prioritizing objectives and also directing resources into where that's most needed. Currently, that we do have management systems indicators currently present in the chain of custody standard and into the smallholder standard. So it's only natural to include them as well into the production standard in order to create some more balanced certification system. They're also now included into the Code of Conduct of Bonsucro, which was revised shortly as well. In terms of looking at the areas outside the unit of certification, as we know that there are certain social and environmental risks that are not adequately, cannot be addressed just by looking at the area certification. These are some, for example, could be deforestation or human rights, which are significant risks in terms of for operators, and also they're increasingly being targeted as operators have to have due diligence in their supply chain in order to comply with different legislations that are coming online as well. So it's also very important to have a look at these. And finally, the continuous improvement indicators is also to incorporate these because they encourage continuous improvement and look at a more flexible system that looks just beyond a pass-fail, which is the current way of Bonsucro working. So before we get into the interview with Ruth, just as a reminder, when we are talking about the management principle, what sort of indicators that are found in the new revised standard are we talking? So the first one is having sustainability policies in place. The second one is mapping internal and external stakeholders, also conducting risk assessments, setting objectives for improvements against those risks identified, and finally implementing those corrective actions. And overall, have a grievance mechanism in order to have a feedback look to see how the system is functioning in its entirety. So, hi Ruth, welcome.
Hi Noel, hi everybody.
Good. So, Ruth, in your experience, how important are management systems for achieving and maintaining certification?
Well, as some of you may know, the management system is a key tool for all the organizations to arrange their processes. It lets you organize your operation in a way that you can find the continuous improvement better. Like you are trying to achieve your goals and you have a direction to go through. So it is easier to achieve success, especially in an implementation of a sustainability system. Also, this promotes the plan, do, check, act culture in your organization. So this lets you act when you need to apply for corrective actions, and always your operation will be getting better and better anytime. Also, the group think that to include the stakeholders was really important, because if you involve them, you will achieve better results with all the within the operation, even though if they are beyond the units of certification. So it's really important, to know your risk, to know your influence of all these people, so you can act over them and apply resources. Also, about resources is better because you can understand where to prioritize the resources that you need in people, in investments, about maybe to add a new process that you need. I've been in many mills, and the ones that already have a management plan involved have better results because the commitment of the top management. If the top management is committed with policies, with all this structure, formalized processes and everything, you can perform better in your industry. So I think it's really, really a key tool.
Thank you, Ruth. Yes, I totally agree. I mean, we see it all the time. Those who have top management direction are also the ones that are more successful. And we also see that as a lot of mills start their certification programs in time the quality team. So they set the directions to them to start the Bonsucro certification. So it is quite relevant and important. So combining some of the other topics that we're going to be talking about today, what role can management systems play to promote improvements in areas that are outside the direct influence of mills? You know, for example, we're talking about third-party suppliers, or independent farmers even.
Well, third-party suppliers, independent farmers, and all your stakeholders are a key part also of your operation. So you will have the same requirements for all of them, and it will make it easier to them to understand what do they have to give to you. For example, if you have a sustainability practice, just like ABCs, to find or to protect water resource, and you are doing everything, but your third parties or your independent farmers are not doing it, it's like you're not doing nothing. So if you involve them and make them achieve the same goals that you are looking for, it's going to be a better results also. Also, some of the other solutions need participation of all the stakeholders, all the communities. So it's really important to define which are these objectives and to share them. And if you involve resources and share responsibilities with them, it's going to be easier also for audits to take place in different places of your operation, because everybody will understand and be in the same direction. So it's the biggest way also to engage people and to engage the communities to work with you and to get better results. So, for example, now in COVID-19 problem, it doesn't matter if you take all the risk protections and everything if your neighbors do not, because then the contagion will be spreading. So it's really important sometimes to define which goals I need to achieve with my third parties, with my independent farmers, with my other suppliers, and involve them, so even if they're out of the reach of the certification.
Yes.
They're part of the operation. Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I think we see with COVID at the moment that everyone's looking at the whole ecosystem rather than just what they can directly control. I wanted to open up if the questions on this topic, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand and we can open up your microphones.
No questions now.
No questions on this topic? Not in the moment. Here we have one from Kevin. I will allow you to talk, and I've unmuted you directly. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Noel. Hi, Ruth. Great to be back in touch. Thanks for the expert advice. How are you doing?
Fine.
Yeah.
Quick question. When we're talking about management systems and the presence and absence of a management system, given that the Bonsucro standard is trying to transition practices towards continuous improvement, and management systems are often demonstrating a specific culture, how do we promote change management within those management systems so that we do see continuous improvement?
How do you promote the implementation of a system without the system, or
change? How do you promote change management within an established management system? Because we're essentially asking in many instances for.
Okay. Yes, that they do not have to certify any other management system. Yes, the changes that that the organization has to do is like, first of all, the top management commitment. If the top management do not believe in what they're going to understand about sustainability, that they need to have fair payment, that they need to protect the environment and everything, it's not going to result. So it's really important that first of all, that the top management believes in this. And for that is to establish some policies and to establish corrective actions. Like that's for the Plan, Do, Check, Act culture. So what we as working group try to do is to take from ISO and from other systems that we know that are working great, these indicators, so or to help that the organizations that do not have a management system implemented take these steps and reach better results than when the standard didn't ask for them, because we found that this was like some of the weaknesses that the actual standard had. So it's just like taking these little steps to reach or to focus or get a direction for a management system culture without certifying it. You just will certify them.
And if I can add to that, Kevin, what also we're trying to do is also embed, the Bonsucro standard into the existing management systems, because they might already look at the risks in terms of, let's say, food quality, food safety, or from health and safety, but they haven't looked at it necessarily, let's say, from a human rights perspective. So the standard really directs you to look at it. What are some of the risks or impacts that I have in those areas? What actions can I be doing today? So I think it's just that the standard is there more to look for a guide of what can you improve in your existing management systems in order to translate them into better practices. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Yes, and I'll follow up with other questions offline.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. If anybody else has any questions, again, please feel free to use the chat box or raise your hand just like Kevin. I think this is it for this section. Right. Yes, if we move on now to indicators that apply to the whole supply area. So this is, so Ruth, this has also been one of the new main changes that has been present there. Just as a reminder to the people listening, what are some of these indicators before we get talking about it? As we talked about the management system, you know, this applies universally, but there's also some that some in the environment. So we're talking about, you know, having mapping of HCV areas or non-expanding into HCV areas, or mapping the diversity and ecosystem services on the farm. And also in Principle 5, we see here it's promoting occupational health and safety outside the area of certification, and also safe accommodation for the workers. So what are some of the risks of not working on these areas, of only focusing on the unit of certification?
Well, as I told you, it's the same. You have to define first the risk that you have. For example, if you take child labor, you can work for to prove that you do not have child labor in your facilities. But what happens if the farmers or the small farmers or your suppliers have child labor? So it's going to be the same. You have to define which things you can handle alone and which of them you have to try to work with all your stakeholders. For example, reputational. For some of the big buyers, the bigger buyers, this is a really important approach. You have to be sure that you reach all these goals through all the supply chain. So if you want to certify just a bit of your operation, you have to be sure that some of these risks are taken on account, because it will matter. It will be a problem if there is a buyer that knows or that really have these reputational things. Also, for importers, it may be a legal risk. So you also have to be which legal risks are needed to be taken into account when you work with different suppliers or small farmers. Another is, well, the social risks, as I tell you, discrimination, child labor, everything, right? Then the environmental risks. You may take care of your water supply or your rivers, but what happens if the communities, if the small farmers, if the other small suppliers, if the third parties do not take care of them? So it's really important also to take the environmental risks covered. And actually, some of the Bonsucro certified members are working already actively beyond the units of certifications, and they have been shown that they get better results because they cover all these risks in a better way, in an active way, in a proactive way. So they've been like already working with communities, working with the programs of small farmers, and these have led them to control some of these risks and to manage them better, and even to provide sometimes some of the resources that they need, and work together, and they have better relationships also with all of them. So it's really, really important, like to take into account those risks and to act to try to settle them down, to diminish it.
Thank you, Ruth. Yes, definitely on the environmental side, you know, we rely on shared resources. You know, it's not just, it's enough to look at what you're doing, because if maybe the impact could be detrimental down in the neighboring area, that could affect your own production as well. So maybe sometimes such a small approach does not necessarily work. And also on the human rights area, you know, as I mentioned previously, we have a host of new legislation that asks you to look at, for example, the law in the UK, and now the European Union is also starting to discuss the same legislation as well at a European basis. And we also see it from the California legislation as well, that asks you to look at your own supply chain and what sort of human rights risks are present there. So it felt kind of natural to include these things in the same production standard. But now, what sort of actions do you expect certified operators to undertake in this regard? Are you expecting everything in day one, or what sort of, in concrete, what are we talking about?
No, well, first of all, and you can follow the steps of the other certifications and the standards, as you said, but there are logical actions. First of all, you need to know which are your stakeholders and what are the risks, and prioritize them. So if you know them and understand the risks that you are taking and that they may have also that reflect on your operation, you will logically find a way to order them and to attack them on time. So sometimes, because it won't depend on your organization, you will need more time. So Bonsucro take this in account about taking this timeline to work with your stakeholders, but to reach the same goal, because sustainability is to be sustainable through the time. So it's really important to take that. You have to take actions that lead you to maintain this sustainability on time, and also use the Plan to Check Act filter. If you involve all these actors, the suppliers, the smallholders, and the farmers, the communities, it's going to be easier to reach your objectives and to help them. And as I told you, sometimes it's something that you cannot touch, but the satisfaction, this relationship improve that you will have, it's going to be like really, really fructiferous for your operation. And you may have the best allies now to reach your goals. So it's going to be really like win and win relationship. So it's going to be really, it's better. So that's the broad vision that we want to get to Bonsucro. Like, it's not my operation only what affects sustainability, but all the community, all the suppliers, all the supply chain. So it's important to take that on your management system. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much, Ruth. Do we have any questions from the audience? Please feel free. It can be about, yep, we have one question here. We'll answer live one. So could that work outside the unit of certification lead to new claims by the mill about their performance? So we're talking about sustainability, talking about in terms of certification. Sorry, can you clarify what sort of claims are you talking about here?
Well, Celine, I don't know what kind of claims are you talking about, but what I've been, or what I have found in many mills is that when you reach for them before they have any claims, that makes it easier, because they think that they're like working with you. They join your objectives and they join your plans. So the claims are like proactive. Well, not proactive. You are proactive and diminish the claims because you're already working on the risks that they may have. So when you reach them before a claim, that makes it easier. And you have to open a tool of communication between your suppliers and you. So this will like make them easier to rely on or trust you, because they know that you are working for the sustainability in general, in a general context, not just for your mill, not like just me, but with all the community, all the stakeholders, and this will make it easier. But they have to understand it. You have to reach for them. You have to define who and what risks are you taking on account in all your operation.
There's two more questions here. One is, and they're both related, how can we keep farmers to continue to adopt? How can we encourage farmers to continue to adopt the standard over time, since some of them don't really see the benefit from applying the full production standard. Ruth, do you want to answer, or I can answer if you want?
Answer.
Sure. So there's two main things. The first one is, you're absolutely correct. You know, the whole production standard is it's time consuming, it's quite heavy, and it's quite data heavy, and it might not necessarily be correct to implement it in the whole supply area, especially at the beginning. But what we are looking for is oneself as an operator to just evaluate their own supplier and say, what are the most critical risks that, you know, are present there, which can affect everyone. So for example, if you identify, let's just take one example as, I don't know, there's a problem with health and safety. You know, we're having a lot of accidents in the area outside the unit of certification. We don't need to focus on the entire standards, just, you know, maybe have some safety instructions to all workers or to all farmers, or how to implement, have a scheme in order to encourage the use and the correct use of PPEs. You know, it's about having, maybe creating more awareness. It's about, you know, awareness training, and providing, in some cases, you know, the direct more support in order to achieve those goals. But correct, in this case, it doesn't need to apply the whole standard. We are working from a risk perspective, focusing on what is important, what you consider you're important yourself. And Kevin's is, how do you incorporate outgrowers into a change management system? Ruth, this sounds like your specialty.
Oh, well, actually, it is linked to the one that you already answered. But first of all, communication, as Nawal said, you don't need them to know all of the standard. You just need to understand where are they part of, and what actions do they have to take on account. For example, as he said, if I only need them to know that they need to use the PPE or avoid child labor or anything, that's what I have to reach them and to communicate to them. And the thing is that you may or you need to do this as simple as it can be, because if you complicate everything and you talk to them with this complicated standard and indicator and all those words, it's going to be like a backup for them. So you need to make them understand that it's easy, that it's for the good of, or the benefit of all of you and them, and to include them in the actions, and maybe sometimes support them with some resources, or a win-win negotiation with them. So the thing is, or the key thing here is maybe communication, and to be available to reach them as simple as, how do you say, as well, not complicated.
Yeah, as easy as possible.
Yes. Yes.
But also, just to add to Kevin's point on how to organize, how to incorporate the outgrowers, is to include, this is the point of the stakeholder mapping, and also the dialogue that create with the outgrowers. What are some of the challenges that we both face in common, and addressing them as well? It's not just a one-way conversation of saying, you know, this is, I need you to do this because the certification requires me to do it. It's also, you know, understanding coming from one's own operator, and also the farmers, of what are some of the challenging risks that we share in common. You know, maybe in some of those we see is lack of trust between farmer and mill, that maybe hinders some of those actions that we can improve to create, as Ruth was saying, that win-win situation. So it's about a slow and methodical approach in order with shared goals. Okay, if there are any questions? No. Good. So, and the final change in the big structure change in the production standard is in Principle 5. So traditionally, in the current version of the Bonsucro production standard, you have to meet all, before receiving the certification, all core indicators, and at least 80% of indicators overall. Now, this is still the case in the revised production standard, but only from Principle 1 to Principle 4. What Principle 5 is, we call a continuous improvement indicator, which is in year one, you only have to meet 20% of the indicators that are in this in principle 5. In the second year, 40%, 60% in year 3, etc., etc., etc. What are some of the indicators that we've included in there? As they were a little bit too much to list, you know, they're about promoting that here are the economic indicators, and also the ones about reducing effluents and recycling or recycling where possible, also providing capacity building to the workforce. And finally is continuous improvement of worker welfare, especially focusing on the area outside certification in terms of occupational health and safety and work accommodation. And finally, gender inclusion in management and technical positions. So Ruth, why have these particular topics been selected for continuous improvement?
Well, the thing is that we, for example, in the waste and the recycling topic, we have seen as a working group that we need to identify some additional criteria that helps to achieve more or to be more successful and to get a better governance. So we find like some of these indicators were really important, maybe sometimes just to reorganize and move this to this principle instead of the principle that they were before, because we need time to show that they're really improving them. For example, as I told you in recycling, you may have a recycling program in your organization, but maybe you're stuck there. So we need to see that you are really improving in some of these topics that we find that need more time, and you may need some better plans to reach them and have a longer results through time than just having the plan, right? So for example, in gender integration also, right now the standard had only like statistical option, how many women you have in your operation, but now we're finding that we can move and to improve also the involving of the gender integration, also that this is like a global topic trend that in many of the areas and many of the sectors. So this is like a logical step that Bonsucro had to take, and we found as working group that these topics were important to first of all put them on the table and then to start working on them, but in a sustainable way, like as a continuous improvement that you have to find or to show results through time, not just like having them for having them. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, and I remind everyone that this is, you know, the first draft only. Everything is still up for consultation. You know, this is not by no way means a finalized draft. It's not set in stone. We are looking really for stakeholder comments through your comments directly to help build and craft the final version of the revised standard. So if you feel maybe some of these some new areas should have been added, or maybe some are not so valuable, please do let us know. It's very valuable information for us. And also, you know, likewise, in the rest of the standard as well, you know, nothing is really set in stone. We are really just starting the conversation with this first draft. So I'll have a second question. So, because we also see, you know, this new approach of continuous improvement indicators or promoting improvement is also quite popular amongst other forms of standards as well. You know, what are some of the benefits rather than just having a pass-fail as we have currently?
Well, the thing is that you may have like a stronger results, because when you just have like, well, you need a process and you just take the process, but you do not follow if that process is giving you good results, you're gonna fail on time. So this allows you to have stronger procedures and stronger results through time. Also, it will allow you to organize your resources. When you have like to take actions and to show this in a continuous improvement way, you need to prioritize and to find which resources are really the ones that you need and where to put them, and also to focus the relevant issues, because you may if you just have the pass and fail, sometimes it's like, oh, I have it, and you just like check it and forget about them. So this way you have to be to keep working to achieve this continuous improvement on time, and to feel the benefit all through the same time. Also, it will let you analyze your results. So if you are analyzing these results, you will reach your objectives and maintain them. You may sustain them and improve them. If you already have the good results, you will improve them. If you do not have the good results, you have the chance to keep working on them until you achieve them. And also, it will help you to correct problems and to find solutions, right? So in time, you will reach different changes. You will change your culture. You will find that the organization will be in a different level of performance. So what sustainability is all about is this, to maintain this processes working on time, through time, and to be sure that, for example, in environmental things, it doesn't matter if you how do you say, like you get a new forest, but if you do not maintain the forest through time, those trees are gonna die. So it's kind of the same concept here. You have to be sure that you keep your forest or your organization or your standard achievements on time and improving every time to make them better. And this will also help you to have a broader investment plan for your organization, so you can handle the resources through time and not just like put them in 1 year, but doing it in different steps, and your results will be better and easier.
Great. I certainly hope so. Yeah, so this is our last section that we wanted to talk about today. We still have 20 minutes or so, 15 minutes. If you do have any questions, please do let us know. We can also, if you raise your hand, if you want to speak, we can also do so. Let's see, wait a few more minutes.
Well, if they don't have many questions, I encourage you to really read all the changes that we tried to how do you say, because this is a proposal to propose, yes. Because you can still say if you do not like them, if you think that they're really hard to achieve, or if you think that may need some more explanation, a guidance to be sure that what we're doing it is in the same direction that Bonsucro has been doing by now. Sasha. Yes.
Yep. Oh, 1 second. Sasha, if you can just unmute yourself, and then you will be able to speak. There we go.
Hi everyone, my name is Sasha Monique Alvik, and I'm phoning in from Norway, from the Norwegian Wine and Spirits Monopoly. And we're of course interested in seeing the changes being made with regards to our rum supply chain. We fully support the idea of continuous improvement. We're Amphori BSCI members, and for those of you that know the standard, it is very much focused on continuous improvement and not pass or fail. One of my questions that I had with regards to the management system is that very often when it comes to the actual auditing, I experience that when assessed on management systems, the standard often wants a poster stating that their standard has been communicated to workers and sub-suppliers. Will you be having a more liberal approach where it could be that the producer themselves have a standard from the get-go, and it would be more focusing on how do those standards meet your expectations on what a management system should be, instead of them having to roll out your management system?
Yeah. I think, Ruth, this is your expertise.
Sorry, it's quite an auditor's type question.
Well, yeah, and well, actually, Danielle Lima is also in the group. She's attending here, and she is an auditor that may answer this better than me, but okay, I'll try. The thing is, what we're trying to find here, also for auditing, is to make it more real. For example, in audits right now, they sometimes find that they have things and they like, okay, they pass, and they have them. But now we're asking to have plans, to have programs, to have policies, to have things that go more through and under all the operation, the organization, that the direction is all understood and not just to achieve like this certification. We are trying to find more like a way of working in the sector, in the sugarcane sector. And this is something that also in the guidance, that also the certification protocol for audits are going to be revised after this is released, the final version. So they may understand that they have to find this focus of plan, do, check, act, all through some of the indicators that we already have, and looking for not just trying to show for the picture in that moment, but that this is true time that you're going to get results and to be in the continuous improvement culture. So this is like also a benefit for the certification process of 3 years that you achieve your certification, but it's not like you just got the certified, but you are going to keep working to maintain it. Yes. I don't know if this answered your question.
If I could just add, yes, I fully know where you're coming from. That sometimes, you know, you have to have like a poster. These are the requirements from X standards that I'm meeting them. That is certainly not the intention behind Bonsucro. You know, there are many different places that you do see. You say we require, you know, let's say in the health and safety practices, you know, they don't need to mention, or in any of the signage or the communication or the policies, you don't necessarily need to explicitly mention that you are trying to meet Bonsucro certification. Maybe in just the policy stating that we will want to achieve it, but that's the only place, you know. Certainly inside the health and safety standards, certainly in all of the different policies inside them, you know, that on the human rights policy or etc., it doesn't necessarily need to mention Bonsucro. We are based on the best practice, you know. We are based on either the ILO conventions or the UN guiding principles. So we it's not even our own. So we're just trying to assure that these practices are being implemented, not necessarily just signposted and acted towards that.
Great, thank you for the answer.
No problem. Thank you very much, Sasha. Does anybody else have any questions? No.
No questions.
It's either a good sign or a bad sign. We're not quite sure.
Hopefully it's a good.
I hope so too, at least. Well, in that case, not to take up everyone's time, I'll just show a final reminder that the consultation process, you know, is running until the 31st of July. We welcome all comments from all stakeholders, members, non-members, certified mills, non-certified mills, individuals, from everyone possible to fill out our consultation documents that are currently available online. You can find them all on the Bonsucro website. You can also speak to myself directly, nawel@bonsucro.com or info@ as well. If you also want to speak to the working group, you can also ask me, and we can work something out to coordinate. There's no problem. We will be holding different webinars like this. It's focusing on different elements or different aspects of the production standard over the coming weeks. The next one and the next series is based on the 8th of June, you know, focusing on human rights, human and labor rights. You can sign up on the Bonsucro website again. So with that, thank you very much, Ruth, and thank you very much everybody else, and have a nice day.
Bye.